Oh, Jess, I've been really chomping at the bit to have this conversation with you. I've been counting down the days. I know this conversation, your work, your message, your energy, your experience, your wisdom, everything, we've got to get it out into the world because it's going to really help some people out there. I watched an incredible Instagram live you did. You recorded it. It's on your grid. So anyone listening, go and have a little look. Where you share your story, and it really stayed with me. And obviously you talk about burnout and how burnout manifests and how it's unfolded in this journey, this incredible journey that you've been on. So let's tuck in, darling. I'd love you to share a little bit of your story. Start wherever, because let's just go for it.
Let's get stuck in. Let's go right to the nitty-gritty. Firstly, thank you for having me, Dal. I was just literally saying before you click record, I was like, where have you been my entire life? You know, when you meet a soul and you're like, I feel like we'd be really good mates, and your energy is exactly what my soul is here for.
We're just catching up.
Do you know what I mean?
Catching
Right?
up. Yeah.
So thank you. And honestly, like when I saw your podcast, I was like, this is soulmate kind of conversation. So thank you. It means the world to me. So from the lens of burnout, I will start from the beginning and try and make it as succinct as possible. So growing up, on the face of it, it looked lovely, right? I grew up in rural Leicestershire in the Midlands of the UK, and you know, both my parents had good jobs. My mum was in fashion, my dad was in advertising, very creative family. And I got a little sister, Rosie, who's 4 years younger than me. And yeah, on the face of it, it looked lovely. And for the most, you know, I can hand on heart say I did have a lovely childhood, whilst also saying it was really challenging at times. And the reason it was challenging, well, there's lots, but anyway, behind the scenes, my dad was really struggling with his mental and emotional health. My dad, bless him, he's a highly sensitive man. I'm a highly sensitive person, right? We have a lot in common. He's deeply spiritual. And I can now see how my dad was already on this like quest for who he was. He wanted to know why he was on this planet. You know, when my mum met him, he got a book under his arm. You know, he's very interesting. He's very charismatic. But he also really struggled with his mental and emotional health. He'd be out of work a lot. He was at one point diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar, really struggled with depression. And I remember as well with his physical health, like he slipped a disc when I was younger. Like I remember him being at home a lot, and I remember him struggling, and us, me and my little sister, having to be there for him, and very much the kind of look after your dad, don't upset your dad, and kind of the eggshell living, not so much at that point when we were very little, but it was very much like, please be quiet, dad's not feeling very well kind of thing. And my mum, on the flip side, she was very much, I hate the term breadwinner, but she had to be the one that was bringing in the money for the house. She would be away a lot with fashion. She'd be working late. And my mum, I never really saw her calm. I never really saw her relax. And even she wouldn't mind me saying, even when we'd sit and watch a film growing up, yeah, we'd be like, Mum, can we watch this film? She'd have to get the ironing board out and she'd have to iron. She could not sit with us. It would be like, I've got to do something whilst I watch the film. So yeah, Mum was always go, 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 doing, always very fast paced, very successful, but very kind of stressed. And then my dad was very up and down. He was either really, really happy, really like the life and soul of the party, or it was very, very dark for him. We moved out of Leicester when I was probably about 8 to a rural village south of Leicestershire in the UK. And it was beautiful. Like at the time, people were relocating out of London to move to this little village. It got a beautiful little primary school. It got great transport links to London. And like I say, it looked perfect. But again, my dad had literally just been made redundant. He had joined a cult. He didn't know it, but it wasn't a very nice one either. He was sending our family's money to this cult. He would disappear for times on end. We wouldn't see him. And yeah, at one point he actually packed his bags up and left us to go and join this cult in America. I don't think I've shared this on many podcasts actually, but I think that was a real poignant moment. Now I look back on my healing journey, right? And I remember Mum being there, stood with me and Rosie as we all waved goodbye to my dad. And I remember like thinking, oh my God, like this is really scary. And my mum just went, okay, girls, let's go swimming. Literally just went swimming, and it was like, let's not talk about it, let's not feel the feelings, let's just kind of crack on. And it was very stoic in that sense. Yeah, it was very much let's kind of smile through it and crack on. But my dad got sectioned very shortly after leaving us. He never left the country. He was taken back into hospital. And my mum openly admits she was a rescuer. She was in codependency. We took my dad back in, when actually probably they'd have been healthier to have separated at that time, but that we kind of all came together again. And that's when the eggshell living really began. And that's when I think alcohol dependency within the home ramped up completely. The funny thing is, the alcohol consumption that I saw within the family it didn't shock me, because I could see it elsewhere as well. Like, the village was very sociable. There were so many dinner parties. People loved a dinner party, right? And, you know, there'd be alcohol flowing. The kids would be like chucked upstairs. But I remember like sneaking down, and like my dad would literally most times be face down in his dinner, and people would laugh and go, oh, Martin, you know. And that was how he was. I just remember like my dad just head slumped the whole time. And yeah, it would be like trips down the pub a lot. The kids would kind of parent themselves over here. And alcohol was just massive. It was. So I can't even say it was just my family, right? But alcohol was a tool for everything. It was when we were having good times, when we were having, my parents were really stressed. I started drinking probably at like 13, like when the house parties were happening, me and my friends would like literally the room would be lined with booze at these dinner parties, and we'd sneak in and like nick all the booze, take it out to a friend's barn, and like we'd literally be like getting it's over there.
Yeah.
We did. That's what we did. We learned young, like, yeah, like
It's modeled. It was modeled. It was just that kind of, that community spirit. And as you say, you know, you have a drink when you kind of need cheering up. You have a drink to celebrate. You have a drink because it's Saturday. You have a drink like it's
everywhere. And right, I don't know if you remember, but like when it was like the 90s, there was like people like Sarah Cox. Is it Sarah Cox?
Yes.
And you know, there was the whole like
the whole ladette
culture.
Remember?
Yes. And they were my icons.
Yeah.
Like literally, I was like, I want to be like Zoe Ball. I want to be like Sarah Cox. Like these women that can drink men under the table. I was quite
all day drinking. Can you remember?
All day drinking.
I was living in London at that point. I just moved down, and it was the 90s. I was early 20s, and it was you would do like a 12-hour stint of drinking all day.
Yeah. I pride myself on like, you know, trying to drink the guys under the table and all of that. And yeah, like the children, the parents knew we were all drinking, you know, it was very kind of accepted. But it was when the dinner parties ended and when you were behind the closed doors, like that's when I saw the real effects of not just alcohol, but my dad's mental and emotional health and his real struggle. And, you know, he was verbally abusive at times. I was the elder sibling, and I took a lot of I was a bit of a punching bag, really. If you kind of put a foot wrong, you know about it. And I very much would be the one kind of making sure my little sister was okay. My sister was very sensitive. She was very quiet. And I'd really make sure that she felt as safe as possible. And yeah, this continued for a few years of just this real eggshell living, the alcohol consumption getting worse. My dad was out of work. He was out of work, you know, from probably the age of 50. He got made redundant and never worked again. So there was just yeah, boozing with friends, drinking in the house. And we had a year that I think changed everything for all of us. And that was when I would have been 18, and already my parents' relationship was fractured. I could see kind of them separating imminently. And we had my dad called us to say that his parents had taken their lives by suicide. He'd found them, and that was just a moment that I'll never forget. And actually, I was saying to my mum and my sister and my dad recently that I'm not sure we as a family have really processed. I remember just thinking at that time, this is going to kill my dad. This is going to kill him. He was already struggling so much. We were really affected by his drinking. My mum was drinking as well to kind of deal with the stress of everything. I remember, you know, literally taking my mum to one side and saying to her, "Mum, you're going to have to leave. Like, you're going to have to leave him, because or else we're going to have another parent in hospital." And I look back and I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah, that weight. But that's what I was in the household. I was the coach, therapist, friend, caretaker, like, and yeah, like that's the kind of conversation that I was having way earlier than 18 as well. And they separated, and miraculously I got into university. I say miraculously, but actually the more people I speak to with similar experiences, it's not that shocking. But yeah, there was obviously a part of me that was desperate to make them happy, desperate to achieve and not let anyone down. So I got into Warwick University in the UK to study psychology. Now know is to understand what the F was going on. Literally, like, can someone help me? So yeah, I did.
We're all drawn to these careers, aren't we?
Literally, I was like, at that point, I think I had aspirations to be a counsellor or a therapist.
Yeah.
And went to university to study psychology, but oh, if I'm honest, because it was just straight after all this stuff at home, like that was where I just escaped for a bit, really. I don't think I went to lectures at all. And I really ramped up my own booze consumption, found cocaine. It was like, woohoo, don't have to feel anything. I found loads of food, junk food. So it was like anything I could do to numb my emotions out. Like, gained a lot of weight, was, yeah, drinking, doing drugs, going out all the time, not going to lectures. And then feeling so guilty because my little sister was dealing with everything at home, where she was living with my mum, but my dad was living in his own house on his own. This is the period of life where, like, I can confidently say I was the child of an alcoholic. Like, there was drinking in the day. There was him, like, walking around town just completely out of it. We lived in the same little rural little town where there was not many people, so everyone knew everyone. And yeah, you know, you couldn't hide. I couldn't hide from it. Rosie couldn't hide from it. And yeah, it was that real horrible conflict of, get me as far away from this stuff as possible, but oh my God, I'm out of control. I can't protect anyone. And this point, my dad was like, his hygiene, as happens with people that are really struggling with alcoholism, his hygiene completely went downhill. wasn't looking after himself. He'd got the family dog that we had to take off him because we were just so concerned for the safety of the dog, and he was inviting people that were homeless in the town to live with him. It was like a squat. And yeah, when I left university and came back home, that's when enough was enough. His mental health was declining even further, and we had to deal with the house situation and get these people out of the house and get my dad into like a halfway house where he could get care. Thankfully, I look back and I'm like, I don't remember the support networks back then. There was no kind of like helplines. Like you were literally like dealing with it on your own.
Incredible.
And you know,
Yes.
it's incredible and heartbreaking in the same breath. And like just things like I'd gone into recruitment as a career because it's what most, I think a lot of people from my course ended up doing, psychology recruitment, because they were a bit like, I don't really know what I want to do. I want to help people. And it was like fast paced and exciting. But my dad would turn up to reception. I get a call from the receptionist going, Jessie, Dad's here again. And I'll be like, oh my God, the shame. And like trying to hide it and like trying to escort him home. Jessie, Dad's on the phone. And I'm like, oh my God, like, please. And just desperately trying to hide the family secret, which I now know from, you know, working with children of alcoholics, that this is what we do, is we protect desperately this secret, desperately trying to protect the local community from seeing it. And yeah, that was kind of like the early years of my experiences, this relentless pressure, this desperate trying to pretend things aren't happening.
Yeah.
Like you're living dual lives, you know?
You're just protecting your dad, your parents, your sister. You're just these spinning plates. You're just trying to manage everything.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, that's heavy. That's heavy. And the thing is, you were doing it from such a young age without even knowing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing to note, is that you don't even realize that's what you're doing. You think this is really normal.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even question that that's your role. And I now know that one of my kind of protections, I guess, protector parts of myself, was that I focused my attention outwards. It would be like, oh no, I'm the one that helps other people. I'm the good listener. I'm the good friend. Like, I want to go into counseling. I'm going to go into therapy. Like, oh, I'm going to look at my dad and I'm going to help my dad. And I'm going to be there for my mum and look after my sister. And it was like, no, I'm fine. I don't need to look at me. I've not got the problem.
Yeah, you don't even want that. You don't even want anyone to say, how are you, or anything, because it becomes attached to what you give to others.
100%.
And we're women, so like that's celebrated.
Yeah.
But you're just, the worth is attached, isn't it?
100%. If someone said to me, one of my biggest activators, I still get it now, I still get like an activation in my body, is when someone goes, I'm worried about you. That I'm like, what? My armor comes up and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? And yeah, it's really funny to notice now, even still, like little bits of like, and it's like, no, Jess, you're safe to not be okay.
Yes. It's so interesting. You know what? People, I have a friend who will text me and go, how are you? And I never answer. They have to ask me 2 or 3 times. And I'm aware I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But it's that, I'm fine. I'm good. So what have you been up to? You just want to help other people and deflect. And you're aware of it, but it's so ingrained in you, isn't it? Just because of this being your normality from such a young age.
Yeah. I was able to like share. It's interesting. I got a part of me that wouldn't accept any like, is everything okay? I'm worried about you. And then I got another part of me that used to say, oh, I could tell my story to the person behind me in Morrison's. And like, it was like a script yeah, dad joined this cult, lost my grandparents' suicide, then this happened, and it was so disconnected. Like I was so up in my head. That was my protection. Oh, I can intellectualize this, and I'm going to learn about it in psychology. I'm not going to feel it. Hell no.
Yeah.
I'm just going to push it down, and I'm not going to go anywhere near it. And like that's why I told myself I was fine, because I was like, well, I can talk about it, but it was so scripted, it was so masked. And even when I delved into some talking therapy, it was like so just giving her what I thought I needed to do.
You know the tricks of the trade, love.
I was an expert.
Yeah. Don't kid a kidder. Here we go. That's what you need. Perfect. Right, lovely.
Yeah, honestly. And I'd leave. I'd go home, buy a co-op, get a bottle of red, and then go drink the feelings that slightly came to the surface during therapy.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God. The masking.
Yeah. All of the masks. And I now know that, you know, these parts of me, these masks that I wear, still sometimes I notice them. They were there. They've been with me for a very long time. They're a result of my trauma, and they're there desperately trying to protect me. And I think part of my own healing journey has been understanding that sometimes it's really not good for these parts to be in the driving seat, because what they're doing is they're stopping me from connection, they're stopping me from intimacy, they're stopping me from vulnerability, like so many different things. But I look back with compassion, which I think is a really important word for this conversation, to be able to understand that of course I wore these masks, these comedic masks and these tough masks and these people pleasers and all this stuff. Of course I became an overworker. Like it makes perfect sense, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You were just doing your best at that time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And
I find it interesting that you went to the States, Jess. I find that very interesting. Like, do you know what I mean? You were like, right, I've got this opportunity. I'm gonna move over this side of the pond.
Yeah. Yeah.
And start a life over here, which on the outside, it's, it's very commendable, it's very great, it's, good for you, go get it, ambitious. But sometimes we can't escape ourselves, can we?
I ran away a lot. Like, so before I moved out to New York for this job, I left Leicester and I moved to Bristol. But that's where I kind of had my first experience of burnout. It's the first time I ever got signed off work, ever took any medication. It's the one and only time that I did. And yeah, it was like I felt this incredible shame in Bristol for what my colleagues saw. Because it was like I need to protect what my masks. They were slipping. I need to control how they see me. The whole perfectionist thing, the whole overwork, and I was in my first leadership position as well, so it was mortifying. And yeah, I remember getting signed off, and I left recruitment in education for a while because I kind of attached all the shame to the job, you know. And then I got this job in events where I got the opportunity to go out and work in New York for a bit, and it was like, okay, good, fresh start, like I can leave that behind. I hadn't processed it or anything. I hadn't unpacked it. I just put it in a box and went goodbye. And I thought, right, this is a new opportunity. This is the new me. So yeah, I got to kind of go away and work in New York, and I was living in this beautiful little place in Brooklyn, like working in Manhattan, and there taking pictures on my stoop at the weekends and like living my #best life. And for a while I think genuinely there's been moments of like alignment of like, oh, okay, I feel like I can genuinely be me. But then what happens is what's sitting in the subconscious takes hold and the patterns start again. And I try and change, and then again the subconscious is like tapping, and it's like, nope, here we go, we're going to do the same old things. And New York is amazing, but it's not freaking amazing if you're not okay. The accessibility for drugs, not just kind of illegal drugs that you might kind of access here in the UK, it's like prescription drugs being handed around work. You've got alcohol, literally happy hours everywhere. The alcohol strength is through the roof. And it was work hard, play hard, like my whole career. Everything was like, you're praised for overworking, you're praised for staying late. Let's bring the alcohol trolley out. Let's go for happy hour. Let's drink on the lunch break. Like, you name it. And then I'm going back to a place on my own and sitting with myself. And yeah, like, I think that with this particular job in New York, I was like a pressure cooker. I was getting to like early to mid 30s, and my relationship was strained. I really struggled with intimacy. I'd get to like 2 years in a relationship and then I'd run. It was
Wow.
same pattern, same pattern, same pattern. And then there was whispers of like, we're worried about you. I'm really worried about Jess. Is she okay out there in the US? And like, that was like a force for me to carry on even worse. I was like, I'll freaking show you.
Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I was like, you don't worry about me. And then I'd be there behind closed doors, you know, drinking and doing drugs. And yeah, it came to a head and I ended up resigning. And again, this was a similar thing to my relationships. I walked out and I kind of did it like dramatically sometimes. And it was like, screw you, I don't need this anyway. And I'd like got my backpack with my bottles and my shoes hanging out of it, my coffee cups and walking across Brooklyn Bridge with this rucksack on, looking up at the building that I was working in, and looking and being like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, what have I done? What is going on? Oh my God, I'm gonna have to ring my boyfriend. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to ring my mom. And like, just the shame and the pride in like this weird duality.
Yeah, because that reaction, you're not, it's like it's happening. It's like you're watching a film, actually, isn't it?
It is.
Just you react and you're just doing it. And part of you is like, what the hell's happening here? You're
Yeah.
not responding, you're purely reacting. And it's like every fiber of your being is reacting to, I mean, we know the stress manifests, doesn't it, physically in your body. And you know, I'm listening to your story, Jess, and I'm like, oh my God, like you had everything on your shoulders. You were carrying so much weight. But it's fascinating how I just want people listening to this to really appreciate that there is no kind of cognitive awareness step by step, I'm going to do this. Like when you're in those situations, you are purely just reacting. And it's scary.
Yeah, it is. It is. And on the face of it, even my breakdown, I'm doing bunny ears because there's part of me that would never have admitted that. It's only in the last couple of years that I've used that word for 2017 out in New York, right? Even my family were like, you were having a breakdown. No, I wasn't. And like, breakdown, burnout, like it was my dark night of the soul, you name it. But yeah, on the face of it, right, that what people saw when I resigned didn't look like a vulnerable person.
Yes.
It looked like someone kicking off. It looked like someone that smiled and was like, don't need this job anyway, you know. And that was a mask. So it wouldn't look like it wouldn't look like in people's eyes someone struggling. And I've written an article for ACoA. I'll share it with you for the show notes. But I wrote an article about how being the adult child male alcoholic can manifest in the workplace. Yes. And you can sometimes look like the perfect employee, you know, where you are the overworker, the overgiver, you win awards, right? You're the one that people like, you know, you're the one that looks after people. I was always like the in-house counselor and therapist for everyone. But then you've got the emotional reactivity. So like this would happen where I would burst and people would be like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
Like, because I was known as people would describe me as sunshine. That would be the word they'd use, because I was always smiley. And like, so like, yeah, like I didn't fit at someone that was internally not okay, because it was feisty or it was happy. There was no crying or I really need some help.
Yeah.
It was like, fuck you, I'm going somewhere else. Now I'm going to move somewhere completely different. And then I moved to Nottingham.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But I mean, what were you feeling inside at that point? You know?
Oh my God. You know what? I've heard this incredible woman called Lou. I want to say, I don't want to get the name wrong, but anyway, Lou, this amazing trauma-informed specialist that I met recently at a festival. And she talks about her psychosis and how it wasn't this scary experience, but it was actually this like really almost like spiritual one. Bizarre, right? I can't, I wish I could like put words to it. I might have to write a poem or something, but like the feeling I genuinely had when I was walking across the bridge and looking, yes, there was this like, oh shit moment, but there was this fire in my belly. There was this like light flickering that was like, there's something more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was almost, some might describe it as manic. And I rode on this energy for a while before I crashed. I stayed up that night and I did a whole website.
Wow.
It was like, I was like, just adrenaline, you name it. But it felt good for me. Okay, maybe not for the people, but it was like this, like, no, Jess, this is your chance. And probably a bit of F you, I'll show you in that. It was definitely toxic to a level, but it was like, initially it was this like, right, let's do this. And I came back to the UK. I thought I could repair things with my partner, but I wasn't okay. And we ended up separating. I came back to my parents, my mum's place with her partner, and I was living on the couch. And that was when things started to like, that energy started to be like, okay, now this is going to feel really shit. And like I had to sit with the reality, you know, when your mum's there, like they're going, what are you going to do today? Or how are you feeling? And like feeling like I was like teenager again, just mortified. And that's not my mum's fault. That's just how that immediately it feels when I have to go home, of like the shame. And I've got this like massive case next to the sofa. And I'm scrolling Facebook and there's like people getting married and like having kids and like getting engaged. And I'm there like, fucking sound. Like, honestly, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, and I look back on my Instagram and it, bless me, it's all these little positive quotes, but it's like, they're all for me.
I was going to say, yes.
Oh my God, they were all to keep me going.
Yeah.
I went out, I bought a ticket very soon after that to go back to New York. I was like, no, I want to stay out there. I want to be in consultancy out there. I was kind of knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. So I went out there and it felt so dark. Okay. I thought I was going to go out there and it was going to feel amazing and I was going to network. I was escaping myself. I was trying to paper over the cracks. Like, oh, maybe if I go back, it won't end this way. And that was when I really started to have my own suicidal ideation. It's the first time in my life I was sat in this Airbnb going, maybe I could do it here. I know it sounds like trigger warning. Obviously, we'll put a trigger warning on here.
Yes, definitely.
But it was the first time. But then my caretaker rescuer came in and was like, but I can't do it because I'd leave them with my debt. I'd got 20K's worth of debt that was secret. Like the shit, I was just fully in the shame swamp. And I remember like this guy walking past me in the park when I was looking quite like obviously quite down, and he said something to me and I'll never forget it. It was just, I wish I could, I say I never forget it, but I wish I could remember the words he'd said. But I looked at my Instagram again and it said don't forget the power of just speaking words to someone or something along those lines. But like lifted me from this really dark place. And then, yeah, like, I think that's where, that's when I got a job in Nottingham. And yeah, I came back, was living with my mum, got offered a job in Nottingham by an old colleague, and came to where I am now, where I've been for, oh my God, what will it be? 7 years. So I've not run away yet. But yeah, I got to work with an old colleague in a recruitment agency that was really good for wellbeing and looked after everyone. It was one of their, most amazing values. And I got to just be, it kind of left me alone. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't put under immense pressure. And I was able to kind of dig into my healing journey for like the first time ever at my pace. Because it was like, oh, don't want to do things too quickly. I don't want to overwhelm myself. But that was when I kind of found podcasts and books about codependency. I never heard of this term ever before. And I was able to kind of, yeah, start the process of coming back to myself, really.
See, I'm just, first of all, I just want to go to 2017 and hug Jess in 2017. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. I'm listening to this, Jess, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's literally, I know this is painful. I know this is a shitty path that you've had to walk. But that moment when you're in New York and you're looking at the building, I know that sense of calm amongst the actual shitstorm. I know that. And it's almost like it's that tower moment where every bloody brick has to come down, and then you're like, okay, and you start to reclaim the bricks that are you, that are meant for you. And I know this is just such a shit storm of like a path, as I've said.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm like, oh my God, like you are a gift to the world, because only you could be the one who now is helping adult children of alcoholics, and certainly tackle those kind of that cycle, that burnout cycle, that over pleasing, overachieving, because when you're in that cycle, I'm telling you now, you don't know it. You don't know it. Just I was a mental health writer. I didn't see burnout walk through the back door, and like also, and we will put a trigger warning at the beginning. I also know that sense of calm when you're in a moment of suicide ideation. And I worked in palliative care. Never did I think I'd ever step close to a moment like that. I share this because I just want people listening to not feel alone. And if they're having a moment, like, just like, oh my God, I'm hugging you right now. It's hard, isn't it, darling? It's really hard.
It's so hard. And I think sometimes, like, when you hear someone share their story and you hear parts that just speak to you, it's such a mix and a cocktail of emotion, isn't it? It's like parts of you feel so validated and other parts are like, oh, what? Like, I'd never, ever used the term child and alcoholic until the last couple of years.
Okay.
Because my dad never used that term.
Yeah.
Right? He was like, well, I'm not like them. Well, I don't drink in the morning. I don't have a paper bag. I'm not on the bench.
Yeah.
Like, and I just thought, I can't disrespect my family. And yeah, I think hearing other people and doing the programs and being in the spaces that I've been in, I've been able to validate myself. I've not needed to ask for permission
That's huge.
to say, this is what I am. This is the label that works for me, right? Because sometimes labels can be disempowering. This right now works. And I used to dismiss it myself. There's a part of me that will always dismiss anything bad. I'm like, oh, but other people have it worse. Oh, no, well, it wasn't that bad. But, I used to think, well, I wasn't a child of an alcoholic. And then I was like, Jess, you were 10 when things got really bad. You were a child. But because I was parentified, I couldn't see myself as a child then. I thought, oh no, that's really little, But yeah, you know, I speak for adult children of an alcoholic as my dad's now sober. And I think this is really poignant because my dad got sober, he said 20 years ago the other day. I went, fuck off. Like, no, it wasn't. Cheeky, what's it? It was about 10 years ago. And, me and my sister were like,
yeah, hang on a minute.
oh, the other one, mate. Yeah, it would be about 10 years ago. Like, my beloved football club, Leicester City, won the league in 2016. And I used to go to Filbert Street with my dad growing up. Like, that was our bond. That was our thing. And actually, just before that time, my dad was very, very, very bad with his drinking. I honestly, at that time in my life, I thought there is no way he is going to be alive if I get married. I couldn't see him walking me down the aisle. I used to imagine his funeral. And at the time I was no contact because I just couldn't do it. I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with the chaos anymore. And yeah, I used to imagine a funeral where people would be shouting at me, telling me what an awful daughter I was. And it was actually when Leicester won the league that we made contact again.
Okay.
And you know, yes, we've got parts of us that use humor to pretend that, but we did manage to kind of have this like light-hearted connection once more, and like got to really kind of sit in the joy of our team winning the league. And then yeah, he's been on this like sober journey since then, and it's been amazing. You know, he didn't even do it with 12 steps, you know, anything like that. He found local kicks and charities that he was able to just speak out his shame. He was carrying so much shame, the stuff that he had to deal with his mum and dad, and all his stuff from childhood. He was an only child. He got so much stuff that he'd never unpacked and processed or never spoken about, that it was actually just speaking out the shame that he was able to kind of park the drink in. But and I hear this a lot from adult children of alcoholics whose parents have sadly died, where they kind of get this sense of relief and they think it's over now, right? And I thought when my dad got sober, oh my God, it's over now. It's over. And that's when things got like even harder for me. I couldn't escape the tapping at the door of my own trauma. It was like the quiet when the chaos isn't happening. I was only left with the chaos inside of me. I was addicted to the chaos. I was addicted to the stress response. I was addicted to codependency.
Oh my God, this is huge, Jess. This is huge.
I had to sit with that.
It's normalcy. It's everything you've known.
I know. And before that time, I got to blame everything else apart from me. It was always something else. Oh, it was their drinking. It was this, that, and the other. And then I got to see how my codependency was I was in the drama triangle. I was like stuck in these dynamics, chasing drama, wondering, why am I always in drama? And it was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to have to take responsibility for myself and my part to play. Not in dad's alcoholism, you know what I mean? But like how dynamics and chaos ends up subconsciously playing out inside of ourselves. It's quite common that we'll soak up certain dynamics and certain patterns that will play out internally, but then also we find ourselves in these patterns in relationships as well. Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to have to really, really turn the mirror back on me now.
Oh my goodness me. It's such unique work, which is why you're the perfect person to be helping people now, because you kind of went down the road of processing this, didn't you? And it's led you to where you are. Thank goodness for others, you know. I'm so sorry to hear this story and to hear what you've experienced. But so Jess, like, so for someone listening to this, so they've heard like, you know, an adult child and an alcoholic, what kind of things what clues are in their life? Like we've talked about the dependency and the perfectionism. We've
Yeah.
talked about the burnout because it's that cycle. What other things are very prominent?
Yeah. Like you've just said then, I think, if you, it's noticing where your self-worth might be attached to, and that's quite hard to notice straight away. And it might be you get to do that with a practitioner, but like with the codependency, it might be that your self is attached to being of service, of rescuing people, of fixing problems. It might be that that's how your dynamic is in a relationship. Often people find that they are in relationships with people that struggle with addiction.
Okay.
Not always,
Yeah.
but sometimes they find themselves in similar kind of situations. When you are in an environment growing up with addiction, with alcohol addiction, you can absorb certain rules, right? Subconsciously. And these, you don't get sat down by a parent and go, that parent doesn't say to you, right, Jess, in this house, we don't feel, we don't talk, we don't trust. You don't explicitly get told that, right? But you will subconsciously get that messaging through your environment, right? Are you someone that numbs out your emotions? Are you sat in your head? Do you cognitively understand everything, intellectualize everything? Do you actually feel, right? Like I numbed out with red wine, with Netflix, you name it, food. I didn't want to feel anything.
Yeah.
I tell myself I'm fine all the time. I didn't feel safe to talk. Or trust people to share what was going on to me. 1 in 5 people are affected by someone's drinking.
I read that on your website.
1 in 5, right? Yeah. But how often do you hear people share that they're struggling?
Yes.
So it might be that you don't really feel safe. Maybe you don't feel safe to go to a therapist yet, or share this. Maybe you keep a lot of stuff to yourself. Maybe you are sat here going, but I'm the strong one. That's what I always had. I had these labels of I'm strong, I'm independent. I used to like love the whole independent woman. Like I was like, feed that narrative, right? Because that's what's going to keep me safe. I want to say that I'm just really fierce and independent and strong. That was my armor. That was what my protectors did to keep me safe. So it might be, like I was saying, you start to notice patterns. It might be that with intimacy, you really struggle with like a healthy sexual relationship. You might struggle with the intimacy of being able to share how you're feeling with a partner. Maybe there's regular conflict. Maybe you struggle with communication. Or maybe your relationships end after a certain amount of time because it gets too close, right? Are you struggling with perfectionism? Like, there's so many different ways that this can manifest. And for a lot of adult children of alcoholics, it will manifest in their own addiction as well. And maybe someone sat there questioning their own relationship with alcohol. But it's kind of like it will manifest in different ways. There's lots of different roles, and I'll give you NACOA's website as well, the charity NACOA. But there's lots of kind of roles that you can fall into as a child of an alcoholic, and sometimes it depends on like whether you're the elder sibling or the younger sibling, but that can have an impact on like how you are. So I was the eldest, so it's like I'm going to look after everyone, I'm going to protect everyone, I'll be the strong one, but everyone's dynamic and everyone's kind of childhood is going to be different. But I hope that kind of helps to kind of, if you're listening to this and you maybe have had niggles that something's not right. I couldn't ignore the niggle anymore.
Right.
Couldn't. Maybe as well. So for a lot of people, it's the body is tapping. The body is holding that score. The body's holding the trauma. So I started to develop around New York gluten intolerance. My mum's got autoimmune problems. That definitely, like, we've had chats now about how that could be linked to trauma and unresolved trauma. I was starting to have allergies. I got constant neck pain, eye pain, back pain. Like, it's the weight.
I was going to say the sheer weight and what you don't want to see.
Yeah, 100%. It was all just like tapping. But yeah, definitely, like for someone that if you're holding in emotion a lot, that will start to show up in different ways. For me, it was like these random outbursts, often with the people I love the most. And that inability to say, I need help. Like you might be listening to this and you really struggle to text someone back and say, I'm struggling. I'm actually not okay. Like maybe you've got no self-care routine at all, maybe no tools that can help you when you're depleted, or no one you feel you could turn to when you really, really need it. Like, but yeah, I think sometimes the body is like the final alarm of like,
You're
you're
not
gonna have to deal
listening,
with
we're
this
going to have
now.
to take you down. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so you have set up an incredible program, haven't you?
So yes. So yeah, my coaching's evolved completely. Like it started off very traditional life coaching and very much about the subconscious with neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy and some amazing tools. But over the last few years, it's really evolved into more therapeutic coaching, I guess, where it's more about somatic. So I train in breathwork. I'm currently training in somatic EMDR so I can help people process the traumatic memories that they're still holding. So yeah, I have different ways that people can work with me. And I think this is important to say as well. Sometimes you will want one-to-one to build trust and safety, and sometimes it's group. So I offer both. I want people to be able to choose what feels safe for them.
Yeah.
I started one-to-one to build the safety and then lent into the groups, whereas some people feel like, no, I want to kind of go group first and then maybe some one-to-one. So I do my Reclaim Yourself one-to-one program. So that kind of incorporates all of the kind of holistic tools, dealing with the subconscious mind and body. And then I've got my Courageous Healing program, which, yeah, I'm currently in my second cohort, and it's just a joy. I created it because someone said to me once, if you can't find what you're looking for, create it yourself. I had a lot of people sending me 12-step programs for codependency, and I just didn't feel, and I'm not saying it's wrong,
No,
but
but
I just didn't feel for myself it was aligned with what I was seeking. And I wanted something that, yes, will incorporate certain flavors of the work that you do in that program, but it's about the mind, the body, the soul. There's movement, there's somatic practices, there's joy, there's play. We're talking about intimacy. I want to talk about the stuff that isn't talked about much out there, where we have that beautiful element of peer support and sharing circles where you finally get to be seen and heard and build safety around that, because it's kind of like a muscle you're building, right? We were so focused, we were so attuned to other people from a very, very young age. It feels quite scary to be seen and heard. So it's about building safety around that. And then a big thing is about building safety in the calm and building safety in the joy. Like I remember Brené Brown talking about foreboding joy. Joy is such a beautiful part of healing. It's a very vital part of healing. Fun, play, joy is very, very important for healing. But many of us, adult children of alcoholics, or anyone that's grown up with narcissism and abuse, like to actually sit in calm and joy and success and your light feels very, very unsafe, right? I catch myself now when I have a good day. I'll probably close down this podcast and I'll feel this joy, and then I'll be like, oh, maybe I fancy a red wine. I notice how quickly I want to numb it out, because it's like my body's like, whoa. This is so it's about slowly building resilience and about building safety in the stuff that we didn't get, gifting ourselves some of the things we never got. So yeah, it's like a mixture of one-to-one. You've got EMDR therapy should you want it. You've got peer support. You've got self-healing resources that you can tap into at leisure. Somatic and holistic like wellbeing hubs. And yeah, it's just trying to incorporate lots of different bits that I've practiced and that I've kind of put into the world in one place, and it's joy.
Oh my
It
God,
really is.
that's
The
amazing.
tears, the connection, the synergy, like
Yes,
of
yes.
being in circle and kind of someone sharing something, and a part of you and your inner child just feels like so seen. And there's something, the term used in like trauma, somatic trauma healing, called corrective experience. And that's what I'm trying to be able to offer people, is for those little them wounded inner children, it's offering a corrective experience from what they've had. So if someone's never felt like they can be themselves or share when they're struggling or show emotion, if they can do that and get a better experience, it's kind of healing in itself for those little parts of them. So it's kind of getting lots of different experiences that allow them to kind of build trust again, and to, you know, feel, talk and trust. That's ultimately what I want people to be able to do.
Oh, I love this. I love this so much, because self-compassion is not as easy as it sounds, you know, and certainly when you've kind of been through trauma, you're a child of alcoholic parent, like, let's face it, there are going to be parts of you that were not allowed to be playful.
No.
And so for you to then go, right, okay, I've looked in this box, okay, I'm going to start to, you know, kind of process this. Don't put pressure on yourself to then be like, right, I need to now be more playful, and I need to do this, and I need to do this, because that is tapping into the old caretaker, the old action, proactive.
It really is.
Like,
Honestly, it's a journey, and I'm still on it.
okay.
I'm messy AF. I say to anyone who comes into my spaces, please don't expect me to be perfect. Don't expect me to be fully healed. Like, I'm still on this journey. I'm still learning bits of myself. Like, I think the gold in healing is that you have this awareness that you can't unsee, right? And I think,
Yes.
if anything, I catch myself doing that. So like I was saying about the joy, I fully expect that when I turn this off, I'll be like, oh, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to put Netflix on, and I'm just going to sit in this. I'm going to meditate in this feeling.
Right.
Or I catch myself, like I say to my partner, Nick, like, one of the rules that I had for this business when I left the corporate world was, don't bring corporate energy here, right?
Okay.
It was one of the first things I said to myself. Do not bring corporate energy into this. And then I catch myself and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm hustling again. And it's so conditioned. It's so hardwired. The parts of us that were formed to protect us are always going to be there. We're not going to banish them. We don't want to get rid of them. We don't want to shame them, right? But what we want to be able to do is lead in self energy a bit more, and a bit more of a grounded leadership, self-leadership energy. And that's what it is. It's being able to catch ourselves and be like, oh, okay, I can see that part of me is really activated. And that makes total sense that they are, you know. And you know what? There are days when self-compassion is so far away, it's untrue. And I am pummeling myself. I have days where, because I think growing up in an environment with addiction and dysfunction, you know, where you're not able to form a real, like, secure attachment with yourself and those around you, your worth is so affected. Like, I describe it as like, there's always going to be this dark little me. I sometimes feel her, like, there, and I'll be doing my work in the world and I'll be on Instagram, and there's a part of me that's like, mate, someone's going to catch you out any minute. They're going to find out that you're an absolute fucking mess and you don't deserve to do this. And you know what, maybe on those days I can't access compassion. Maybe it's really hard, but when I can, I will. And I think being able to speak to other people, like my groups and Nick, my other spaces, and people like Josh Connolly, our friend, like, when I can speak it out loud to people and say, God, this is how I felt today, and these are the thoughts that have been coming in, that's the closest thing I get to compassion in the, you know, in that time.
Yeah, I knew I've already started. You know, I've done well. I've already broken down. I was like, I can't hold it any longer.
Oh.
I mean, Jess, to me, it's interesting. You're saying, some days self-compassion's not there, and for people kind of working with you, some days are as messy as fuck. But that's why you are the perfect person to do this. Because, just what you shared there, like, I think we all have a little part of us that is just like, oh.
Yeah.
And to hear someone say, I too have that, is incredible. So whether it's working one-to-one with you, or whether it's working within a group where there's other people nodding, or like having a tea, like, it's so powerful and so important as you take these steps forward. Because again, I'm going to go back to that moment in New York where you're looking at the building and like you got your rucksack on, and that is your tower moment. Like, every bloody fucking brick fell down.
Yeah.
But look at the beauty that you've created by taking those steps forward. And I guess I'm just sharing this, and I just want people, if they're listening to this, like, don't worry. We've both been there, haven't we? Where you're like, I do not see how I'm going to be able to even stand up, not alone, take a step forward. And I know that feeling, and it's rough. I get it. But listening to you share your story, and there's obviously other stories on the podcast, and they're going to relate to different facets of burnout. But just hold on. So love yourself. Really tap into any little part that can just give yourself that love and compassion that you so deserve and are worthy of, without any of this, people pleasing and caretaking and being the strong one. And how are you, Flic? Hey, I'm great. How are you? It's okay to kind of be like, oh, I'm fucking on the floor today.
And honestly, it's why I got my tattoo, because I got the Brooklyn Bridge and the buildings where I worked on here, and underneath it is my sister's handwriting, anything's possible, we're in this together. That was done when Dad was deep in his alcoholism early on, and then I had that over the top of it. But it's there to remind me of the light and the dark. And I think when we can hold both simultaneously, I think when we can hold duality, I think it opens a door to healing like no other. And like, that can mean different things to me at different days, right? Looking at that, I can look at that and be like, thank goodness that happened, because I'm here. I can look at that and go, you're okay to crumble. You're gonna be all right. It can, it can be whatever I need it to be. And it reminds me that I'm okay. I'm safe to not be kind of the cliche, but I'm safe to break down. I'm safe to cry. I'm safe to lean into support. And I think, when you're ready, because I fully appreciate that a lot of the people that gravitate towards my work, it takes a while sometimes for people to actually take the first steps in their healing. It can be incredibly terrifying, and that armor, those parts of you that have developed, they will do everything they freaking can to stop you from reaching out to that person, booking that discovery call or whatever. So, but when you're ready, I think when you can even just be in community, but follow like ACoA, if you're listening to this and you don't know them already, the charity National Association for Children of Alcoholics, or dip into some of the peer support spaces that are available. Like, just, you don't even have to share, right? That's one of the things that I'm really passionate about, is whether it's my drop-in peer support that I've got once a month, or whether it's the deeper stuff. It's a treading carefully. You can do it at your pace, and there are people out there that hope will allow for that building of safety slowly, very, very slowly. But I'd say find your people, connect with people, and just see how you feel. Do you feel safe with that person? Just because you've got a title or they've got letters after their name doesn't mean they're right for you. I'm really passionate about that.
Yes.
I struggled personally with a real power dynamic that I was seeing in therapy and psychology. And that's not to say that all of that's bad, but what it's taught me is that I never want to position myself as an expert, right? I'm a space holder. I reflect back. I've got some tools that we can use and I can impart, but my clients are the experts of them.
Yeah.
And like, I think that really helps adult children of alcoholics with you already taking a really scary step. And then if you're met with someone that's got this like superiority and kind of energy, power dynamic, I think that can make people kind of even further. So there are some bloody brilliant practitioners out there, whether it's therapists, whether it's counselors, whether it's coaches, healers. Test, see who you feel safe with. That's really important for that art, for their mask to come off.
So I just realized that scar all down my bloody face. Right. Like, God, it's a podcast. You know what, as well, Jess, I'm listening to you and I'm just thinking it's also okay for if you're to look brilliant, you know, you want support and you want some help and you want some guidance. I feel it's also okay if you look around your close circle and those relationships aren't equipped or right aligned to help you. We can sometimes think, oh, you know, my partner, my, you know, my family members, my whatever, they should be the ones to help me. But no, that doesn't have to be, because sometimes you know, we have relationships in our life that kind of mirror what we're experiencing, and they're there just for a little short time or a lot, like, so it's okay if you're sat there thinking, okay, but is this strange that I'm going to join Jess and join Jess's community group of people I don't know when I can't actually say this to my partner or whatever, and I feel I'm just going to sit here and say, no, go on, go see Jess, go see Jess, it's okay. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. And we are allowed to change, and relationships are allowed to change in our lives. But I just feel, oh, look after you and do what feels right for you.
Exactly. And everyone's going to go at different paces. But I think you're right. I describe it as like sharing circles, like, and sometimes it's good to like put it on paper and have like you and then some circles outside and think like circles of sharing and safety, who's where. And I think sometimes like around us, it is the therapist or the coach or the peer support. And then it might be these people and then these people, but it's okay to test what you can share with who's able to hold it. I've got some great friends that are great for a laugh, but as soon as I share something deep for them or part of like what I've shared here, they'll just shut down, close off, they're gone. And that was really activating for my inner child. So it's okay to put them here. These are what I do. And these are friends, what I do, fun. These are the ones I might go to the pub with. These are the ones that I can have a coffee and I can share the deepest, darkest parts of my shadow self and they can hold it. Yeah. But I think it's okay to see people for what they are and what they can hold. I think that's really important, a part of your empowering journey, really.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So what's your one last thing you would love to be able to tell someone listening to this who has, you know, it's resonated deeply with? What's something that you'd like to kind of let them know?
That you're not alone. Like you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. And more than anything, it should never have fucking been your responsibility.
Yeah. My God.
Oh no.
I didn't even bring tissue with me. Okay, but you know what? I want to read out as long as I don't get a wobbly voice.
Yeah.
You've got these words on your website, and I'm like, oh, they're beautiful. And you say it was never our fault. We are enough. And oh, fuck. And we always have been. Oh, there we go. Wobble, wobble, wobble. But it's beautiful. And I think that's just such a good reminder.
Oh, we all need it. I need it. Like, yeah. Trust me, like when someone says those words, and I know you know Josh Connolly, and that's one of the people that I kind of first met when I did this real deeper, more embodied work. And he'd say those words, the type or whatever words he'd say, it felt like, oh my God, it's so aligned. You need to hear it, isn't it? Yeah. But I think that's why actually breath work, like the breath work for emotional release, the conscious connected breathing classes that we put on and people like Josh put on, I think they're so powerful. Look how those words touched you, yeah, and that's in your conscious mind. Imagine what some people that have got very, very strong armor will feel when they can do a practice that means they drop out of here and into here, and they finally get to hear those words that maybe parts of them are so desperate to hear. And I think, like, it's easy to brush off, isn't it, sometimes when we're in our like protective conscious mind of like, oh, that's really kind, oh yeah, that's quite sweet. But when another moment, when you're more in your body and you're more grounded, like you did, hear those words in a different way, and you're like, that's touched a part of me.
Oh, yes. I just can't wait for more people to know about your work and know about your magic. Like, you just have the most incredible energy. I just can't wait for people to listen to this. But obviously, if you're listening to this and you're kind of having a wobbly moment like I did, you know, DM me, DM Jess, we're there. Like, do you know what I mean? But this has been amazing. It really has. I knew it would be. I knew it would be.
No, I knew as well. Thank you. It's been a joy.
Yeah. And so what I've been doing, asking guests at the end of our conversations, just some like quick fire, light-hearted questions. So on your dodgy, tough days, Jess, do you opt for move your body or move the remote?
Remote.
Get some good telly on, good British telly.
I'm binge watching Stranger Things, I think, for like the 3rd time at the moment. I'm like, oh, Jess.
Oh, so good. So good. Okay, bag of almonds or bag of Maltesers?
Maltesers. But I mean, I can't have the gluten, but I'd have the Maltesers. I'd gluten myself for them.
Cup of tea, down you go. Or this is tricky. Ask for help or happy to hermit?
On my tough days, there'll be a part of me fighting the help. Like big part of me that will just be like, no. So yeah, I might hermit with a bit of breath work. And if there's a peer support call that day, I'll force myself to go.
Done. That sounds like a really good plan. Good plan. Okay. Now, lastly, what's the one self-compassionate thing you're going to do today that your future self's going to thank you for?
Bit like what I was saying earlier. I'm going to sit in the joy of this conversation. Like, Nick's actually gone away, my partner, to do a men's retreat. So I've got the house myself, just me and the cat, which for part of me will just feel like it wants to distract.
Okay.
I want to distract myself massively. So I'm going to just put some music on, and I'll probably have a good old cry. Because I can feel it. So I'm like, no, I'm gonna allow this emotion and this beautiful feeling from this beautiful conversation.
Yeah. A beautiful conversation that is gonna, we know, the ripple effect will be huge. We may not even know the people who it's really helped, but we know it's helped someone.
Yeah. And I'm just sending everyone so much love. If this resonates, like, honestly, you're not alone. And there are the most beautiful communities awaiting when you're ready.
Yes. I love it. I'll put in the show notes everything that people can, you know, where people can find you, your work, and the links that you've messaged. I'm going to put out to the universe, I kind of want to be reading your book, Jess. Just saying.
That's on the vision board.
Lovely, thank you. Let me know when that's out, because I'll be, we'll have another conversation about that. Well done.
Oh my God, seriously, that's on the vision board. Maybe this is the prompt to make it happen.
Good. I was kind of like the other day going, oh, I wouldn't mind reading Jess's book. Let's put that out to the universe.
Come on, universe. Any book publishers? Anyone know any good publishers? Come my way.
Fantastic. Oh, Jess, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, darling. Like, what an absolute joy. Thank you.